Hi, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Dental Marketing Secrets Podcast, where we provide actionable strategy and tactics that you can apply immediately to grow your practice, to serve more patients, and to leave a greater impact, because that is what it's all about, my friends. My name is Mark Thackeray, and as always, I am honored to be here with you in this very moment, however you may be listening, wherever you may be listening on this another glorious day. I'm excited that you're making this part of your day. Today I have a very special guest. His name is Dr. Michael Sonick. And Dr. Sonick he's pretty well known in the industry. He's highly regarded in dental implantology and periodontology. He's written several books, and one that I'm holding in my hand right now called Treating People, Not Patients. And he's got a lot of, he has so many resources too. I'll get into those at the end of the show, but there are a number of things that I wanted to talk with Dr. Sonick about. And we get into, in this particular episode, we talk specifically about creating an impeccable office environment. We talk about how to build really a world-class experience within your office that will leave a lasting impression on your patients. So we're going to talk about the details of that, how to do that, also leading as a servant leader. We hear that phrase in business sometimes, servant-hearted leadership. You want to lead by example. You want to be on the front lines. You want to be that type of leader in your practice. We're going to delve into that a little bit as well. But one of the things that really struck me when we were talking is Dr. Sonick's approach to building this office environment, building this rockstar team through hospitality, through his experience in the hospitality industry and customer service, and taking that to the industry, to the dental industry, and applying that on a practice level. There's a number of cool things that we're going to get into in this particular episode, as well as a whole host of resources that you have access to through Dr. Sonick on his website, michaelsonick.com. I'll post those up in the show notes. He's got videos, he's got downloads, he's got resources, he's got really take and deploy tactics for you and your team right now, which I love, because I know sometimes we'll talk about strategy and it's when it gets down to the reality of application, that can be hard to translate over. But Dr. Sonick does a really good job of having these resources that you can really that are ready to implement. And that's one of the things about our show, is that we like to focus on those things that are working right now, things that you can take and deploy immediately. So without further ado, let's get into the show and hear from Dr. Sonick. All right, you guys, welcome back to another episode. I have a very special guest with me. I have Dr. Michael Sonick here with me. He's written, how many books have you written? We were talking about that before. I didn't even get a final number.
I've written 7 books and published about 60 articles.
Holy cow. Yeah.
But I've been around a while, so it wasn't done in a week.
Well, there's still a lot of people that have been around that haven't quite measured up to that. So I think that's incredible. We have Dr. Sonick here with us today. We're going to talk about actually a number of different things. We're going to talk about office culture, building a team, and integrity, really. And what it comes down to, we were talking really just before we hit record about, Dr. Sonick mentioned this idea of connecting with patients and loving your patients. And I want to get into that during the show. But before we get going, Dr. Sonick, why don't you take a minute or two and just give us some background? I know a lot of people know who you are, but just in case, provide a little bit of background in your experience.
Well, thank you. Most people probably don't know who I am, because that's the culture today. Most people don't know who anybody is anymore. It's a blink,
Yeah.
And in a few, some of my leaders in my field, my mentors, who are household names to me, I expect them to be to everybody else, but they're not. So I'm always amazed at that. Once you're gone, it's over. But anyway, I'm a practicing periodontist, and I graduated dental school in 1979 from University of Connecticut. My mentor was Harold Lowe, who's the father of clinical periodontology. Most people don't know who he is, but we wouldn't be doing what we did if it wasn't for him, because he's the first person that showed clinically that if you don't brush your teeth, your gums are going to bleed, and it's caused by bacteria. And that article wasn't published until 1965.
Wow.
In 1965, we found that bacteria caused gingivitis, which is inflammation gums. We also found that if you brush your teeth and remove the bacteria, you will no longer have gingivitis.
Mm.
And it's 100%. 100% of all human beings, if they don't brush their teeth, are going to have bleeding gums within 7 days. And that article was published 10 years before I entered dental school in 1975. So I've been out of dental school for a while. That's almost 45 years. So I've been practicing. I did my residency in periodontics in 1983 at Emory, with also some leaders in my field who are great people. And I practiced as a general dentist in New York for a couple of years in between dental school and my residency. And I opened up a private practice in Fairfield, Connecticut. In 1985, I had 0 patients. In my first year in practice, I grossed $35,000. My overhead was $90,000. So it took me about 3 years to become profitable. I started a startup in a town with 5 periodontists, and I never took insurance. And I decided I was going to do it that way, and I was going to
Yeah.
practice ideal dentistry. I ended up working in a mall for 2 years to support my private practice, and then after 2 years, I stopped working in the mall. I was mall dentistry back then,
Yeah.
and and I started teaching. I started teaching in 1984 with Dennis Tarnow at NYU, and it's now 40 years later, and I'm still at NYU. I'm still teaching there, and I still teach at University of Connecticut School of Dental Medicine, where I graduated. So I've always been an academician. I've always been taught teaching. I love education, and I built a customer-centric practice. My background is, in the hospitality industry. I waited on tables. I played cocktail piano in restaurants. I was a
Mm.
bartender. I was a food runner. I was a short order cook. My father had a furniture store. I delivered furniture. I repaired furniture. I talked to customers there. And I've always been into that experience of giving people a great experience. And I know what that feels like. And I wanted to build that servant-hearted type of customer-centric practice. I didn't know what I know now back then, but I could see that's what I always tried to do. I've also had a lot of dental care myself. I had a very bad accident when I was 8, knocked out my teeth.
Mm.
My jaw was wired shut for 6 weeks. I went through high school without my front teeth, 2 little
Wow.
brown stubs. My sister called me broken teeth. She made fun of me. I called her things to make fun of her too, which I won't mention. But she called me. She was still, we were 3 years apart. I'm 71. She's 69, and still to this day, when she sends me a birthday card, she goes BT, broken teeth, and we're very close, but we still joke about that. So I've had a lot of dental care. I have a full mouth rehabilitation, which means I have no natural teeth. I've lost 9 teeth. I have 23 crowns. I've had 4 root canals done. So I've
Wow.
spent a lot of time in a dental chair. I've had
Yeah.
great experiences as an adult, but that was when I was able to choose my dentist. As a child, I did not have great experiences. I had some good ones, some not so good. When I knocked out my teeth, I had a phenomenal experience because the oral surgeon took them from the sidewalk. I went over a bike in bars. He took them from the sidewalk and he put them in and he wired them back in.
Wow.
So my background is, as a hospitalian, it's as a clinician, academician, teacher, but really, I'm someone. I'll tell you what my goal of my practice is. My mission statement is to improve the quality of patients' lives. My goal is to help everybody that I touch, including you today with this interview, because I interviewed you before we went on because I don't know you very well. I want to
Mhm.
make sure I give you the right information you want for your audience. So my goal is to always make people feel better because of my interaction with them. And that's gotten clear over time. So all these things I've done a lot of work, a lot of self-work, a lot of working on it, a lot of talking about it. I have a huge network of people that I talk to. Everything I mentioned to you, I've learned from other people and from my interactions with other human beings.
Mm.
So
That's
that's
awesome.
a little bit of background of where I come from a humanistic as well as an academic approach. The academic stuff is, while it's important, it's not what we're going to be focusing on today.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. And I think we're just probably just scratching the surface of all the things that you've been able to do, which is awesome. But let's talk a little bit about that your prior experience with hospitality, with customer service, and how that's really
Yep.
shaped, your approach to providing exceptional care. I know that's something that you're really kind of known for, that is building a really an impeccable office environment. And I think that's got to be where it starts, right? I mean, talk to
Yeah.
us a little bit about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think we have a phenomenal environment. And there's a lot of things that you need to do. Um, when I talk about this, I model my practice after a restaurant. So
Mhm.
I remember when I opened up my practice in 1985, there was a restaurant right next door to me. It was called Centro. It's still there. they opened theirs up. And I remember looking at the window, the first thing I think, because restaurants go out of business, most restaurants
Oh,
do not make it, right?
yeah.
There's always I have a place in New York. I mean, I haven't been in New York in 2 weeks. I went in there, and there's three places across the street are closed, and new ones are going in. It happens that quickly.
Oh, yeah.
And it's always like that in New York. It's always in busy cities. But anyway, this restaurant Central opened up. It was 100 yards from my office, and it had a big plate glass window, and had a pasta making machine in the window. And this is 1985, so this is a
Mhm.
while ago. This is before foodies. This is before we had
Yeah.
Top Chef and all those things on TV. Now everybody's a cook and a foodie and knows everything. And we have the superstars are now cooks, right? We
Yeah.
have
Oh, yeah.
Gordon Ramsay's a superstar. What does he do? He makes hamburgers, okay? Cooks a couple of eggs, but he's a
Yeah.
superstar. Bobby Flay, and all these other people. So I watched that and I go, that's cool. I wonder how long that restaurant's going to last. And the food there, it's not the best restaurant in the world, but the food is always consistent. They're always nice, and they're still in business. We still order lunch there all the time. And it's
Yeah.
been 40 something years that they've been in business, and so am I. And when I opened up my office, I opened up in downtown Fairfield, Connecticut. Fairfield is a bedroom community of Manhattan, of New York. I call it the Upper East Side with trees. I mean, everybody
Yeah.
there is New York oriented, but it looks like we're out in the country. People live on 2 acres. Some people live on smaller plots, but it's pretty much New York based because a lot of people, there's a train station there. And I'd say about a third of the clientele, my patients do commute to New York or work out of New York. And I forgot what the point I was going to make with that. But it's like, oh, I remember it. I was opening up my practice. So it was a busy town. I mean, there's only
Mhm.
65,000 people, but there were 4 periodontists in the town. That's a lot.
Wow. Yeah.
And I opened up, and people came up to me and goes, I wish you talked to me before you opened up because you're never going to be successful. I go, okay, thank you.
Thanks for
I'm
the
a
boat.
few $100,000 in debt. I had my school loans. I took $200,000 out, which was a lot of money back in 1985. It's still a lot of money today,
Yeah.
but it was, today people could take more out. But I had a lot of debt. I had $400,000 of debt in 1985. People thought I was wealthy because I had a beautiful office. I decided I was going to open up a beautiful state-of-the-art office, and I got 600 square feet, and I made it look perfect. I framed my own prints. I got Ansel Adams prints that I still have, by the way. I paid
Yeah.
$60 for them. I put them on the wall. People thought I was very wealthy and very successful, and I made it look like I was when I went in there. And for some reason, because probably my hospitality and restaurant experience, I want to give my patients a great experience. And because I love food and I've always liked food, I always went to great restaurants. Even when I didn't have any money, I would save all my money and I would spend it on experiences. I didn't drive a fancy car. I had an old Volvo with 120,000 miles on it that I bought for $2,000. I mean, I didn't wear fancy clothes, but I loved to have it going out to great restaurants. So that was and I still do. So that's where I'll spend the money. Now, most people think that's a little crazy, but I just love doing it. And that spilled over. It turned out that'd be a good thing because it spilled over into my practice because I
Yeah.
ended up modeling my practice after great restaurants. There used to be a book called Zagat's. It's no longer out, but it was a restaurant guide, and it
Mhm.
looked at three things. It looked at food, okay, and it looked at decor, and it looked at service. Those were the
Mhm.
three things that they judged the restaurant by. And it was a book that was created by Tim and Nita Zagat, who went to Yale. That was in New Haven, which is right by where I live. And they loved to go out, and they would start reviewing the restaurants, and then they asked their friends to review them, and
Yeah.
then they created a little book, and then they created a business, and they had one for every city, and then they had one for hotels, and they had one for casinos and bars. They ended up selling the business for a lot of money to Google, and Google squashed it and created their own.
Yeah.
But that's the book that I used to look at when I wanted to find a great restaurant in the cities that I would be in. So I started thinking about the model for a dental practice. I go, we don't sell food, we sell dentistry. Dentists don't like to say we sell, but I mean, everybody's marketing today.
Yep.
And I mean, we do sell. I mean, that's what we do because we don't do it for free. We
Right.
sell a product. Our product is dentistry. They say we're professionals, but what professionals do is they sell their services. That's what the definition of a professional is. It comes from basically the prostitutes. They sell their services.
Yeah.
And as a professional, they go the oldest profession. Well, they say that because that's where the root of the word comes from. We are someone who sells our services. There's nothing dirty or bad about it because that's what we do. But you want to be able to sell services with high integrity, and you want to be able to do it so that people, you don't manipulate people to
Right.
buy your stuff, which I see a lot of. And so that's one thing that we do. That's the dentistry. Then we have to have decor. And you mentioned that we talked about that before. And what decor is what the place looks like. And you get a feeling for it.
Right.
And That's something that you get in any environment. And then there's also service. And all three have to be there to give somebody what I would call an over the top, excellent experience that we call in our practice the wow experience. So we have labeled every experience in our office. So one is we call the wow experience. When you come to Mark, if you were a patient in my office, I'd want you to leave there after your initial visit saying, I've never had an initial visit with a with any doctor like that. And we want you to walk out like that. And we do that not by giving you a flower and not by giving you a manual and a book with fancy pictures in it. We do it by relating to you as a human being.
Right.
Okay? Now, I can relate to you very well as a human being, but if I have a filthy office, okay, if I have, bad music playing or scratchy, you got to listen to the music. If I have old magazines, that's sort of the standard joke in the dental office.
Mhm.
I just read about the NBA playoffs back in 1984 because I read the magazine that was still sitting around there. It was a
Yeah.
dog-eared magazine.
Right.
So all those things, creating that environment, get people to say, yes to treatment. So they all have to be there. So we're not going to talk about dentistry. I'm just going to make an assumption that all your listeners and anybody who practices dentistry is a good dentist. That's not true because everything's a bell curve. You have some
Yeah.
excellent dentists and you have some terrible dentists. And patients, by and large, don't know the difference. If
Yeah.
someone does a good root canal on you or a bad root canal, you wouldn't know. All you know, did it hurt? No, what was my experience like in the office? You don't really know that. If they're doing your front tooth and you're doing a single crown, then they got to match something, yes. But most of the dentistry isn't like that. Most of the dentistry takes place in the dark. So you really don't know if the dentist did a good or a bad job
Right.
until something goes wrong, or even if something doesn't go wrong. You may have an infection in your mouth that doesn't really bother you clinically, but it may be sitting there dormant. So patients really can't judge the dentistry that much. We think they do. We want to become excellent dentists, and we want to take Invisalign courses, and we want to take veneer courses and digital courses. And that's important, but that's not what people see. What people see are two things. They're going to see the environment, because 90%, 70, well, maybe 80 to 90% of everything that we relate to, we do visually. If you look at the work from neurolinguistic programming, what that is how we see and relate to the world. Most of what we do is we do visually. Now I'm talking to you now. Listening to an audio is sometimes very difficult. This is probably not the best way to learn because you're just hearing my voice and the tone. That's it. You don't see what I look like. You don't see my background. Do I have a nice room that I'm in? Is the lighting good?
Yeah.
What's my facial features look like? I mean, do I have my hair is my hair messy? Do I have dandruff on my shoulders? Do I have like a half of a beard going on there? Those things are all extremely important, and I talk about that a lot in my teaching. What people see is the most important. Okay, that's it. And before you even meet the patient, that patient has made a decision whether they like you or don't like you, whether they're going to buy from you or not buy from you, and when they're going to relate. Now, when I walk into the room, that my patients has already had about 10 to 15 different opportunities to make a decision of whether they're in the right place.
Mhm.
And I talk about that. And I always ask my audience, as I did this weekend, I said, what do they see before they see you? And they'll say the front desk, then I'll go to the telephone, they'll say the reception, something, a human being. I go, no, it's not. It's
Right.
the referral.
Mhm.
That's the first. And then it's the website. So if you don't have a kick-ass website, not a cookie cutter website, but one that's actually humanistic, that actually
Yeah.
spends some time on, I think it's important. If you go to my website, which is my last name, sonic.com, like www.sonic.com, my practice website, you'll see what I think is a beautiful website. I have 1,200 pages of material. Now, I know it's over the top because I teach and I do,
Yeah.
but everything there is to educate so that my patients will be able to make the right decision. Now, so that's where I also start in education. But let me get back to the visual. So you got your website, and then you got the phone call, which is usually blown. I
Mhm.
mean, if you ask me my least favorite thing to do in the world, is to make a phone call to a doctor's office. I won't just say dentist. Dentists are terrible. Doctors are worse. Not that much worse, because I get the phone tree. Okay.
Right.
And then I know the office I'm calling. They got two people at the front desk. I got six choices.
Yeah.
Okay. I got to listen to it. And then I click. If you're a new patient, and then they go, sorry, what did I get? Now I go into the phone tree, and then what do they tell me? Sorry, we're busy helping another patient right now,
Yeah.
but your call is important to us. Well, if it's important to you, pick it up. Okay.
Yeah.
And so we've dehumanized all this. We're not connecting with our patients. And then it goes on and on and on. And then it's the office. Is it in a good neighborhood? Do you have garbage outside? Do you have nice plantings? I go in as an invisible patient sometimes to the doctor's office, and I start taking notes, everything that's done wrong, right down from the telephone is usually it, and then the paperwork. I've already filled it out online, but then they want me to refill it again, and I got to
Right.
write my address on 4 different pages of paper. It's like dentists, not just dentists, everybody. I just stayed at the Bellagio this weekend. Nice hotel. Okay. I don't know if you've
Okay.
ever been there.
Yep.
It's in Vegas. It's been in Ocean's 11, and beautiful place. And I checked in. It was great. I got into I'm a Marriott guest. It's a Marriott hotel. So I got into the Marriott line, and I'm a top customer there because of all the hotels I stay in. And they go, welcome back. They didn't even look me up in the computer. I go, they're saying welcome back. I go, do they have visual identification there?
Right.
They didn't. They just said, welcome back. They
Yeah.
assumed because I looked like I knew what I was doing. I go, how did you know that? How did you know I've been here? He goes, well, you look like you've been here. So they say, you look like an important person. I felt
Yeah.
great. Okay.
Right.
Not that I needed that, but but then I
Right.
went to my room and I had to do a Zoom lecture. And the Zoom lecture was at 11 o'clock and it went till 2. And I checked out of the room that day. I was there for 2 nights, and then I'm taking the red eye home back to New York. So my conference was over, but then I had to do a Zoom lecture for another conference. And so that's why I checked out that day. I should have stayed in one more day. So I said, can I have a late checkout? They go, we don't know. I go, when are you going to know? The morning of. Well, I have like 40 dentists waiting for me. I need a
Yeah.
room that's quiet. And so I go back and forth, and I said to my wife, I go, can you call the front desk for me and just take care of this? Because she does all of my travel arrangements,
Yeah.
all of ours. And so she goes, they're nasty to me. They hung up. They can't do that for you. They won't be able to know. I said, okay, can you get me a room? They go, no, they're sold out. I go, they're not sold out. So I called I was a Shine conference, and I called the head of Shine who was there to go, no, we can't do anything for you. They're sold out for us too. Now my room's $300 a night. So I went out to hotels tonight. Okay. Where you can book a hotel that day.
Right.
And I went on there, and guess what the rooms were? $850. But I needed it for the 40 dentists, and I needed the room for 4 hours. So I go, all right, I gotta suck it up. I could have gotten the room paid for by the people I was speaking to, but I
Right.
needed it. I didn't want to blow the lecture because I didn't want to lecture in some broom closet with people opening and closing, which I've done before. So I
Yeah.
call hotels tonight. I get the room. Now I got the room. Now here I know what's going to happen. They're going to say I don't have a room, okay, the Bellagio, because
Yeah.
it's so far. So I call customer service. I go, can you do me a favor? And I said, I have a problem. So I always, by the way, this is a little tip to your listeners. If you want someone to help you, act like you're helpless and that you need their help, because people like to help most of the time.
Yeah.
So I said, can you help me? Because I've already asked them for a late checkout. They told me no. So don't be demanding. I really have a problem. I said, I'm Dr. Sonick. I got 40 doctors that are going to be listening to me. I've already paid for the room. Next day, I said, I don't want to switch rooms. I don't want to have to change my key card because it's going to time out at noon. And then I'm not going to be able to get back into the room. They go, well, we can't do that. I said, there's got to be some way that you can do that. So we go on, we have a nice conversation. His name is Cameron. He says, it's all taken care of. You don't have to change rooms and you don't have to change your key card. Well, based upon my previous experience in customer service, what do I know? I know that that's probably not going to be taken care of because
Yeah.
that's just what it is. So we have an expression in surgery, trust but verify. So I'm going to verify it. So I go to the gym at 5:30 in the morning, because working out before my thing. I go downstairs and I go right to the lobby. Now the lobby's empty. The Bellagio, I mean, I don't know how many rooms are there, thousands. So there are
Right.
thousands of people. It's one of the busiest hotels in Vegas. So I go to the front desk. Lady is on. There's nobody at the front desk. It's a huge open lobby. There are 3 people behind the front desk, and she's on her cell phone, and I see she's playing a game. So I decide, let me see how long it's going to take her to look up.
Yeah.
It took 35 seconds. I timed it. 35 seconds for her to look up. She goes, oh. And then she continues to look at her phone as I tell her what's going on. I said, I don't want to change keys. So-and-so, will this key still work after noon? She goes, no, it won't. I said, well, can we do it? So she says, yeah, I got to check you out and check you back in. I go, okay, no big deal. No eye contact yet. But I'm looking at where she's sitting, and she's sitting she's not sitting, she's standing. There's no chair. She's out in the open, and behind her, there's no wall that she can hide behind. She has to stand, and she's standing in a little narrow hallway that's about 1.5 times the size of her body. So
Yeah.
they make her at the Bellagio stay there. So they're putting her basically in a pen.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of like she's like a chicken or a cow or something,
Right.
going and traveling. I go, she's in this is terrible. They're putting her in bad customer service situation. That's why she's on her phone just to pass the time at 6 a.m. So she checks me out, and now I don't have a room because I'm checked out of the room. I'm in
Yeah.
no man's land. Okay. My
Right.
stuff is still in there. She goes, credit card, please. I go, why do you need my credit card? You just had my credit card on file. I had my cell phone. So
Yeah.
I didn't take my wallet down there because I'm on shorts and a t-shirt. I go,
Yeah.
my credit card's on my phone. She goes, I need a physical credit card. I said, no, you don't. I said, you just took it out. I go, now I don't have a room. I said, I'm paying $850 for 4 hours to be in a room. And now you tell me you won't check you in. And she's talking like in another language. It's not another language. She's just like mumbling. I don't understand a
Yeah.
word she's saying. So she says something. I heard management. Then she's gone. 15 minutes. I'm waiting there by myself. And I'm taking notes, by the way, for my lecture, because
Yeah.
I just put Bellagio in my lecture the day before about great experience checking in. Now I'm having a bad one. She comes back. She says, the manager says it can't happen. I said, well, I talked to Cameron because I got the name. I said, I was going to give Cameron a 5-star review. I said, so I got his name. I said, what can you do? They go, well, we overrode the paperwork and we let you in. But this took me 45 minutes of a lousy experience. We do that in dentistry all the time. Every time I call a dentist office, I am put on hold for 4 to 5 minutes and then only to be told that the dentist can't come to the phone. Now, it's not the front desk fault. It's not that woman's fault. She is in a cubicle standing there without a seat. There's no
Right.
training. And I saw that everywhere. Then I went looking for eye contact for other employees. Nobody would make eye contact with me. The people that cleaned the room wouldn't make eye contact with me. The person at the coffee shop wouldn't make eye contact with me. The only one that made eye contact with me was when I checked out and I got a cab to the airport. The guy opening the doors asked me, hey, buddy, where you going? He was your tray good? Because he's looking for a tip.
Yeah.
And, and I didn't have any singles. And, but it's really, they work harder because nobody has money anymore. We're all walking around with,
Right.
credit cards and things.
Yeah.
So I looked at him and I pulled 20 out of my wallet and I go, here you go. And I said, because I finally had a great experience.
Finally.
And,
Yeah.
and I want to put something good back out in the world. He goes, hey, boss, next time you're at the Bellagio, come to the front of the line and put you there. Now, the chances of me coming at the Bellagio and seeing him out there and going to the front of the line, you remember me, are close to zero. But we had a great exchange and I threw some good karma in the world. And guess what's going to happen? He's going to go back. He's going to be really nice to his wife. And when you check out at the grocery store next week, when his wife is at the cashier there, she's going to say, hey, I'm not going to charge you 25 cents for that bag. Thank you. Have a great day. It spreads. And that's what customer service is. It's not customer service. It's going over the top, being hospitable to give people a great experience. And I'll tell you, when you start to look for it, you don't see it too often. So here's the point for your listeners. If you go over the top, and if you're incredibly nice to people and looking always to be the gift to them, not for them to give you money, not for them to say yes to a $30,000 case, not for them to say, yeah, let's start treatment, not to say, send me more patients. Forget about that. Don't ask for that. Don't ask for more patients. Don't ask for reviews. Here's what you ask for. How can I help you? That's the question you want to ask. How can I be of service to you? How can I give you a great experience today? What can I do to make it better for you? And then when they say, well, everything's okay, find something to do for them that they didn't ask for. Okay, that is phenomenal. That is phenomenal. I didn't ask for that guy to say, come to the front of the line, but I felt pretty good. And I'm telling that story 2 days later.
Yeah.
I'm also telling a story about Bellagio, which is not a good story a few days later because I started my lecture the day before with a good experience, and it's not their fault. So when I called the office and, Marge gets on and says, please hold, and she's in a terrible mood because the dentist up top, I always look, when I have a bad experience, I always look like who's in charge. And the person in charge is usually not very happy. You come into our office and everyone's going to greet you by name. They're going to ask you if you want coffee. Do you want tea? Do you want decaf? There's something I can do. Are you waiting for your mom when she's in surgery? Would you like a private room to do some work on? You don't have to sit in the reception area. Would you give us our cell phone? We can call you. Oh, by the way, do you want to get something to eat? Here's a list of all the restaurants in downtown Fairfield that we recommend with our recommendations. Take that. If you don't want to sit here, we make it very comfortable. We have 3 bathrooms in our office, so you don't have to wait outside. We make it, and none of it is a luxury to do that, but I created it that way.
Right.
I mean, I could have had just 1 or 2 staff bathroom and made them lane. I just look for a reason. I mean, people employ what I call an anti-sales team out there. People are looking to get you not to buy from them, and they do creepy things to make you buy for them. It's the wrong thing. They put the ads out and so on. So if you're just nice to people, then they're going to want to be with you. So I went to a course once. If I'm going on too long, just to stop me because I'm like an autopilot.
You're good. I'll have a few questions, but you finish that thought, and then I've got a few follow-up questions on that.
I'll just say one thing. So I went to this course. I was 30 years old, and I went to a course. It was on building a practice or something like that. And I walk into the room, and everybody there is either bald, has white hair, and the average age is about 70. So I'm thinking, like, what are these people building a practice for? He's 70. I was with a friend of mine who was named Fred Kriegel. He's a young prosthodontist. And the guy gets up, his name is Harvey Sarner, who was like the dean of finance at the time. He goes, I think there was a mistake in the brochure. It said that this was about customer service and building a practice. It's really about retirement planning. So if you are in the wrong room because you want the customer service, he says, don't leave. He says, I'm going to give you the course right now. And then he stops. He goes, be nice to people. He goes, course is over. Okay, now we start talking about that. Was it. And I remembered that. That was like 40 years ago. It's all about being nice to people, the stuff that we learned in the kindergarten.
Isn't that true? That's so true. So let me ask you a few questions on that. So if let's just say I'm listening to this and I'm starting to recognize that, hey, we don't maybe have that elevated of a patient experience. So
Right.
what are some things, what were some recommendations, or if maybe they don't know, maybe they just feel like, well, I don't know if I really do.
Right.
What are some ways to evaluate that? And then maybe what are kind of some first action steps would you recommend?
That's a really good question. First action step I'd recommend is go to my website, which is my last name,
Yeah.
michaelsonic.com. You can go down there and you can get a lot of free things. There's something called the little things. It is I don't know if you have show notes or something like that,
Yeah.
but you can put it in the show notes. It's free. It is 10 pages of little things that you can institute immediately. Um, Such as number one was be nice to people, but
Yeah.
some was like have a box of tissues in every room in the office, because the dental office is an emotional place. So you want to be able to have people, have tissues there. So you hand it to them immediately and make it easy. Use aromatherapy. Dental offices smell like dental offices. So we have
Right.
aromatherapy, in an area. Look around your office. Act like you are there for the first time in your life and that sit in a dental chair and look at the ceiling.
Mhm.
And, the chances are there bugs in the lights? Are the ceiling tiles stained? Look at the walls. Is the paint okay? Walk around your building. Do you have nice shrubs? I don't own the building, so somebody else does it. I don't. Talk to your landlord, or buy some shrubs yourself and put them in. Cost you a few $100. Is there garbage there? Is the signage okay? Do you greet patients by name? Do you have a picture of every patient in the computer? So when they walk in, if somebody, you have more than one front desk person and that you don't all know them. So you greet them like family when they're coming in. So you know them. What's a new patient? I've never seen him before. Well, if you were come in, Mark, for the first time, I'd look you up online, which I did. And so I said,
Right.
there are four of you online. So I'd have to look for the one that lives in Fairfield, Connecticut. And
Yeah.
I may take your picture down and I put it up there. So when you walk in, hey, Mark, how you know? How'd you know I am? I'm there. When I walked into Bellagio, they didn't know me. They
Yeah.
acted like they knew me, which was fine. They had the same experience. And if you don't know them, just greet them. And when you see if there's anything that you can do for your patients, look for an opportunity to give an unexpected pleasure or wow experience to your
Yeah.
patient. Someone comes in, first time they get their teeth cleaned or something, hand them a free toothbrush, but say, do you have any family members? Yeah, here, take 5 brushes. Yeah, we have really nice toothbrushes in our office. Make sure your bathroom is really clean.
Yeah.
Put a sign up in your bathroom says, if this bathroom is not tip top shape, please alert any team member. So you're acknowledged that they can actually complain about it.
Yeah.
Have toothbrushes there, have toothpaste. Don't use terrible soaps. Have Williams Sonoma soaps and hand creams in there.
Right.
Have toilet seat covers. Whether they use them or not, it's just all because people sometimes are afraid of disease. Whether they do
Right.
anything to prevent it, not, but the signs there. Paint your office every 2 or 3 years, whatever it is. Clean your carpets twice a year. Wax your floors every 3 months. Have a cleaning service every night.
Mhm.
Look for things being out of place. It is open up any cabinet in your office. It should be perfect. And most importantly, the doctor's private office should be as neat as the front of the office. We talk about the insides matching your outsides. It's an old
Yeah.
expression. You want your insides. Isn't that great when your insides match your outsides? You don't have to be phony and something.
Exactly.
You should be comfortable having your patients take a tour of any aspect of your office. I'll tell you an interesting story. Do I have time for a quick story?
Yeah.
I have a famous patient. His name is William Ravis. You don't know him, but he is a real estate entrepreneur. He's the largest one in my town. He has the largest privately owned real estate company in the United States, and he grew up very poor in Bridgeport, Connecticut, where I'm from, which is right next. And I've known of him for years, and my mom worked for him like 30 years ago, and he came in as a new patient. And Bill worked his way up from, he lived in a fifth floor walk up in a poor part of Bridgeport. He had a caddy in the rich country club as a kid. He looked at these people like, one day I'm going to be one of those. And he did become one of those. He has 5,000 employees. He has real estate offices from Boston all the way to Naples, Florida. And he came in as a new patient, and he canceled a bunch of times before he came in because he's busy. And we got into it a little bit. He knew of me, I knew of him, and he was an intimidating guy. And so we got into a little bit of banter. This whole story is in my book. But when we were all done with this little banter back and forth, he turned to me, he goes, I trust you. He goes, you're okay. I go, why is that? He says, because I looked at the most important room in your office. So what do you think that is, the most important room in my office?
That's a good question. My first thought was the bathroom.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
My bathroom is marble. I have a marble floor.
Yeah.
I have marble walling. My bathroom is a very costly room. It's one of the most expensive dental bathrooms in the country, I think. And it's perfectly aligned, and everybody's supposed to go in there and clean it, and I'll do it myself, And I actually didn't even want to put a handicap. I had to do it, but I didn't want to make it handicap because I didn't look as aesthetic as I wanted to.
Yeah.
But I have to. It's the law, and it's also necessary for my sedated patients.
Yeah.
So I said the bathroom. He goes, no, it's not. Now I'll do the setup. I have a 150-year-old building that looks like an old building from the outside. It's in a historic part of my town, but I gutted the inside. The inside looks like a professional operating room. We have an operating room there. It's really sterile. I have a laboratory, I have a teaching center. It doesn't look like the outside.
Right.
So I said to him, it's not the bathroom. He goes, no. He goes, it's the basement. I said, oh, he goes, and your basement's really clean. I go, how do you know where my basement? How did you get into my basement? He goes, I'm a realtor. He goes, I know where a basement is.
Yeah.
He says, when I sell a house, I go, the first thing when I list a house, before I look at the house, I go into the basement, because the basement is going to tell how well the owner takes care of it and what the kind of situation of the building is, if it has wet or something. He goes, and I went to your basement, and it's meticulous. It's clean. It's neat. It's waterproof. Now, my house was built before we poured foundation. It's built with rocks and cement. So you can see that. And it has these old timbers there holding it together. So it's very, very old. And it's all waterproof. It's all cleaned. It's spick and span. I got a laboratory down there. I got a staff lounge there. And even though it's an old room, it looks really, really clean. And he says the basement is the most important room. And he says, what's important is that your insides match your outsides. You might look good, Mike, walking in here with your nice clean scrubs and your professional attitude, and I'm a doctor, but is that who you really are on the inside?
Yeah.
Are you doing everything possible? Because, I work with a lot of dentists, but how many, I know dentists pretty well. How many dentists would I actually let work on me? Because I know it. I know the backstory. And when I talk to patients, I say to them, I said, you know who I feel like? I feel like the Wizard of Oz. I said, you're coming in here and, you're Dorothy or the Tin Woodsman or the Lion or Scarecrow. And, you're thinking you're going to go to Oz and get a heart or courage. And you get there and it's like scary and all this noise. And then like this bald-haired, kindly old man opens the curtain and goes, no, it's just me. I go, that's me. I'm the Wizard of Oz. I'm just a human being.
Yeah.
I just happened to go to school for a few years to learn how to do this, kind of stuff, some suturing and some, but I'm just basically a human being. And unless I act like a human being and I'm approachable and open and vulnerable, like, Brene Brown talks like, and Simon Sinek and all those people that are very important that your listeners should read. By the way, listen to Simon Sinek's famous podcast that he did in 2009. And please watch the Netflix documentary on vulnerability by Brene Brown. It's 90 minutes. And if you can learn that and understand that, you're going to become a much better dentist. You can become a better human being. Become a better human being first, but learn the dental skills. That's pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
And look around like a new customer. And then you have to do this with your team. You can't tell your team what to do. You have to lead them. You lead them. You don't instruct them. It's not the army. They're volunteers. One of my mentors, which we didn't talk about, is Danny Meyer, who owns Shake Shack, but he owns the top restaurants in New York. He's the most successful restaurateur in the world, and he wrote the book on hospitality called Setting the Table. And in that book, he talks about your team. And I can't do, what I do without my team. But my team's not going to do what I tell them to do unless they see me doing it.
Yeah,
I have to do
right.
it. And during COVID, we had a lot of time, and what I did was I cleaned the office. We have 4 floors in my office, and including the basement. And I went down there and I moved every box. I cleaned every drawer. I went through it. They helped me, but I was moving the heavy stuff. I wasn't having them do it. So whenever there's an opportunity for me to get there and do something, my wife used to be office manager. She'd go out in the middle of the day and start picking up garbage outside around the
Yeah,
office and do it. They would see
that's
that's
yeah,
what the owner of the business is doing. They're
right,
not going to do it. It's important that you are a good leader. I mean, in a football field, Mahomes, he's taking those hits, right? He's not
oh yeah,
complaining. You don't hear
right,
Mahomes or Tom Brady. Do they ever complain? Did they ever yell at their left tackle for missing the block? No, they take it and they're working as hard as anybody else. And so that team is really, really important. And a lot of dentists don't like their team. They go, I wish I could just do the dentistry. I didn't have to work with the
right.
team. I love my team. My team is more, and I tell my team, you're more important than the patients. I go, without you, we can't serve our patients. Now, that doesn't mean not to be nice to the patients, but I have their back. I go, and you don't have to take abuse. And if they're giving you a hard time, I'm going to be there because you're going to do the best job possible. And
Mhm.
without you, we can't do what we do. And I look for that, I tell you about for the wow experience for
Yeah,
patient. I look to give my team a wow experience every day. I have 24 people. I walk in everybody's room at some point during that day and acknowledge them and say, "Hey, how you doing? I know your mom was sick. Is she okay? Oh, by the way, happy birthday." Whatever it is. I knew you heard you had a migraine last week. You feeling better? Good. And they do it, and that's infectious. They do it to
it
each other,
is.
so we all
Yeah.
support each other, which is really nice. Um, I got a letter from one of my patients, Patty Ulatowski is her name. By the way, anybody's name I use has given me permission to use their name, and they're on my website with a video or something like that. So
Yeah.
Patty's been my patient for 35 years, and she's a tough patient. She's a clerk at town hall, so you know what those people are like. Rules and regulations.
Mhm.
You didn't sign there, do this. And before she became a patient, she faxed me questions after questions after questions. And anybody else would have said, "I'm not treating her. She's
Right.
crazy."
Yeah.
But she became my first sinus graft patient, 35 years ago, and she's still a patient 35 years later with full mouthful of implants. And she's a great patient. And so she had a cleaning the other day by someone who hadn't cleaned her teeth before, Ashley. And she wrote me a letter and she says, I got the best cleaning I've ever gotten. Ashley is so meticulous. I really appreciate her. And then she went on to compliment me. She goes, "I don't know how you do it. You have such great people working there." Well, I was in Las Vegas when I got the letter, so I wrote up an email to my team, and I wrote one to Patty, and I'm going to copy, and I'm not going to I'm going to office on Tuesday, so Monday night. Tonight, I'm going to send a letter to the team. I waited 3 days, so all 25 people were going to get the letter of Patty complimenting the office, but complimenting Ashley. And when Ashley walks in on Tuesday morning, I'm going to say, "Ashley, unbelievable job." So she feels supported. I look for she's going to have a wow experience. Now she works for money, but I mean, how good does that make you feel?
Wow.
When you get that.
Validation right there.
Yeah. I mean, Taylor Swift, she's working for money, but if you're not clapping for her at her conferences, she's not going to be happy performing, right?
Right.
So,
100%.
you know, that's all important stuff.
That's awesome. There's so many things there that I wish we had time to keep going into it because I think I mean, I love what you're saying. You were talking about insides matching outsides. I think that's critical because you just get that alignment, and I think you could think of it from an individual perspective, but also a team practice
Mhm.
perspective. And once that's in alignment, you're all rowing that same direction. There's nothing stopping you. It's funny. I was traveling. I was mentioned earlier that we were coming back from a trip to California last night, and on the plane I was watching the movie Boys in the Boat, and I'd read that book before years ago and just fell in love with that story. And it's in the movie they show that point where they've kind of built up this momentum, and then one of the main guys just he has some personal issues, with his estranged father basically, and he's just not in sync, and then he kind of goes to the one guy on the team, the like craftsman who's building the boats, and they had a little talk, and he just helps them realize that, hey, it's not about you. It's all about the synergy that you're building,
Right.
essentially, and that's exactly what we're talking about. When you build that synergy and you're all bought into that, and with a team, with a leader like that who's invested in and leading as a servant, and leading by example, it's something marvelous to behold. Like it really is. Like everyone can get behind it and they feel proud. They take ownership in that. And yeah, it can just it's really remarkable what you can accomplish when you have that all in place.
Yeah. Like when you look at some great ball players, some
Mhm.
of them are individually very talented, but they're not leaders.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of people don't like LeBron James. I have tremendous respect for that guy.
Yeah.
He's a leader. He's there every night, doesn't get sick, 39. Compare him to like someone like um, tall thin guy that won a championship. What's his name? They're all tall thin.
Yeah.
But he's went from team to team. I have a mental block from. He played with the Warriors. That's where he won his championship. Do you follow basketball at all?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He was at the Oakland, not Oakland, Oklahoma Thunder.
Oh.
One of
Um,
the best ball players of all times. One
yeah,
of the
yeah,
best.
yeah.
But he's always complaining. Man, you look at Kyrie Irving. Melting down.
Durant.
Phenomenal.
Kevin
I mean,
Durant.
probably
Yeah.
one of the best ball players in the league.
Yeah.
But he's not going to lead. Because he's like that. Yeah, it's alignment, and you got to. It's like the boat. If you have a crew team, one guy just dogs it or
Yeah.
drags the oar the other way.
Yeah.
That's why, if we have anybody on our team that is not aligned, it drags us down. So that's a problem. And someone asked me about that the other day, actually yesterday when on my Zoom meeting, what do you do? And I said, you have to know what your values are, and the team has to know. So what are our values as a team? Integrity is one of ours,
Yeah.
team leadership is, well, teammate is good. It's servant-hearted leadership is one, and it's being servant-hearted, being educational, health. And usually one of the core values that usually come into that are not aligned, it's not integrity, because if you don't have integrity, you're not working in our office. But people get selfish.
Right.
So they don't become part of the team and they start thinking about themselves first.
Yeah.
We'll put up with it for a day or two, but after a while, and I don't have to do anything. Team takes care of it.
Yeah.
I don't call them into my office. I have a little thing, which we could get into. I have a form I give people when they complain. It's called the Experience Transformer. I learned this from Dan Sullivan, one of my coaches.
Yeah.
Dan Sullivan. I don't know if you know him.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got his book right here. I've got 10x is easier than 2x, and
Yeah, yeah. Well, he's been my coach for
fantastic.
like 10 years. So,
Oh, amazing.
so exponent. Have you taken strategic coach?
No, no, I need to. They've been contacting me and I've just been waffling. I need to get in there. I need to.
Yeah, do it. It's good. You won't get Dan anymore because Dan has
No.
moved to a different level. But I had it
Yeah.
for 10 years, and there's a form we give him. It's called the Experience Transformer. It's called like, what happened? What's my part in it? What could I do differently, and what can I do so it'll never happen again? And so I just give them that form. They don't even come to me anymore because they know they're gonna have to. They're going to have to be responsible.
Yeah.
And then some people shouldn't be there anymore. Some people need to retire, but we don't have that anymore because we hire the right people, and we constantly, we constantly message of what it should be like, to be there. But I'm gonna, I do have a special skill, in this area. I mean, I can lead, and I've always been a leader. Most
Yeah.
dentists are not leaders. 5% are. It's a 5% are autonomous leaders. So what if you're not a leader? You'll
Right.
go, okay, yeah, Mike, that's okay for you to do, but I'm just a really good dentist. I'm a really good dentist. I am a really good dentist, but
Mhm.
I wasn't a really good dentist when I picked up, the
Yeah.
instruments initially. I had to work really hard at it. My dad was naturally very talented. I'm not an artist. On my day off, you won't see me tinkering around the house and hanging drapes and
Right.
building an MG from nothing in my basement, and then all of a sudden it drives.
Yeah.
They're half the dentists are like that. They're really good with their hands, but they may not be good with people. So to become a dentist, they never they never they do everything but people skills. You got to be
Yeah.
smart. You got to do good science. You got to do hand skill stuff. You got to do spatial relationship. But be nice to people. Forget it. We're not going to teach you that. We're never going to talk about it.
Yeah.
So they're not even going to teach you any medicine because you just work on teeth. So that's a
Right.
whole other conversation that about the oral systemic link and being positions of the oral cavity. So what if you're not a leader? And so take some courses, know what you need to be like to become a leader, and then hire people who can help fill that void. All
Mm.
right. So there are certain things that, like, ask me to do Excel spreadsheet, can't, don't know how to do it. I just don't do it. I hate it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm good at making money, but if you want me to look at the numbers, I mean, I can do it if I, it takes so much energy. And Dan
Right.
talks about this, about your unique ability. My unique ability happens to be in mentoring and teaching and education. So you can see here, I can just, I'm like a wind-up toy. I can go for like about 48 hours and not stop,
Yeah.
and not repeat myself, because this is what I love to do. But if
Right.
I had to do surgery for 48 hours, when a doctor calls me up, Mike, got a great case. I don't really care about the great case. What I care about is how it's going to impact the patient. That's where I look.
Yeah.
And so I had to become good at it. And I'm well known as a good surgeon, which is sort of a joke to myself. That's what I'm well known for, because what I really what I really love is the other parts of it. So
Right.
if you're not good at certain things, you can't be good at everything. You know, I'm not going to hang anything. I'm not going to do any of that kind of stuff. But you find other people. And then, Dan Sullivan talks about finding the right who's, surrounding yourself with the right people to build the
Yep.
right team. And so that requires some studying and taking some time to do that. And I think a lot of us expect us to go to work and it's just all work like that. I find most dentists, here's an interesting statistic. For your listeners, I just want them to know, I do a weekly 5 to 10 minute free video series on YouTube on some of the topics that we talked about.
Yeah.
Have about 50 of them out. I've been doing them for the last year. If you follow me on Instagram, which is at Dr. M Sonick, or go to michaelsonic.com, you can sign up for my newsletter. And here's what's my newsletter is not just to be a talking head. My newsletter, each one of them, I want you to listen, bring your staff together, your
Mhm.
team together, and every Wednesday sit around for 5 minutes and just watch what I have to say.
Yeah.
Because one of the things I have to say is that, are we just pothole fillers, or are we treating the people that we serve?
Yeah.
And it's a good message to get. They're all positive, upbeat messages about it's not going to teach you how to do dentistry. You can take my surgical courses for that. I mean, I do
Yeah.
those still too, but it's going to teach the team members to sort of move up to that area. So that's another place where they can go. There's a tremendous amount, there's a treasure trove of free information on my website. And of course, my book, Treating People, Not Patients. But the book it sits there. If you don't read it, you read my
Right.
book, I don't think you're going to become like a great leader. But at
Yeah.
the end of each chapter, there's 2 or 3 pages of a checklist of like, are you doing this? Are you doing this? Are you doing this? Are you doing this? But it's a good start. I also have a video series of 10 modules. They're 3.5 hours of material that comes with a workbook, this workbook here.
Yeah.
And you take your team through 10 modules of what it takes to build this servant leader practice where you provide, hospitality and great connection. So I guess we're running out of time here, but let me just sum up. It's very important that you become aware of how you practice. Take a really close look at your practice. Do a really good evaluation of your practice, not the money, but what it looks like. Go in as an anonymous patient.
Right.
Walk into your practice like you've never been there before. See the patient experience. What can be improved? What do you like? What do you dislike about it? And realize that it really comes down to this. It comes down to 2 things. It comes into really being open and vulnerable so that you can truly connect with your patients on a very authentic manner. And it comes down to one word. It's love. And it's love and spirituality. Now, I'm not talking about believing in Jesus or Muhammad or Jewish religion, whatever it is. It's really connecting with other humans, because we are all connected.
Right.
And when I slow down, I talk, even though we're on a Zoom meeting, I feel connection with you. This moment, there's something that happens between humans when you're connected. And for me, that's my spiritual experience. I
Yeah.
could be walking in the woods, I could be skiing down a mountain, like as you like to do. I can be out doing a run, you know. But when I connect, all I got to do, if I am stressed out, all I got to do is slow down, look at the person whom I'm serving, because I look at myself as a servant, and how can I connect with them right then? Because our patients come into our office feeling vulnerable, scared, fearful, they're uncertain. They don't know what the future is going to hold. They don't know how much it's going to cost. They don't know how long it's going to take. They don't know how much pain. They don't know if you're any good.
Right.
You've been the best in the world. You could be like, the best at your field in the world and have a great reputation. As you know, I'm outside of New York. We have the hospital for special surgery. We got the doctor that replaces the hips on the guys that play football, for the New
Yeah.
York Jets. But when you're going in for your hip replacement, is he going to be a good day or bad day that day? You
Right.
just have a fight with somebody,
Yeah.
does his stock drop a little bit, or does he have heartburn? You don't know where he's at. So, and we're all humans working on humans. So those patients that we treat are vulnerable. And what they want more than anything in the world, and this is it, they want to feel safe and cared for. You want to take away all their worry because they're scared to death. And so, one thing, and I'll end with this, one thing that I tell patients at their initial visit is I go, I know you're scared. I know you're fearful. You may even have dreams that your teeth are all falling out. But I want to tell you this, I will do everything I can to care for you and to help guide you through the process. And I'll guarantee this, you are definitely in the right place. Thank you for being here. And by being declarative, by telling them in the right place, you can just see them relax because they don't know what's happening,
Right.
you know. And I've been in practice for 40 years. I have a very busy practice. You can't get in to see me for over 4 months unless know somebody. I mean, I'm just booked that busy.
Yeah.
And so no matter that reputation that I have, because people come from all over to see me, they're still scared to death. It doesn't matter, that I treated their friend or I written a book or whatever. It's them that's there right now.
Yeah. Oh, that's powerful. That's powerful. I mean, and it all comes down to that connection, and I love how you brought in, Brene Brown and just being open to learning more about that. And that's really how you get started. If you don't feel like you're naturally inclined to that or you're not good at that, you just have to start chipping away and start doing a little bit of that here and there. And like you said too, I loved, and this said it earlier on in the interview, but once you start looking for those things, those opportunities to improve your experience, improve your practice, improve that whole dynamic, then they just come like they're all over the place,
Right.
and whether it's opportunities for improvement or opportunities to wow someone, you'll just have these thoughts that come in and it is so exciting. It's like the Disneyland experience that people feel
Exactly.
with
Yeah.
where you go and you're just on the hunt endlessly, trying to find that one little thing that you can do to make them feel special. And it's goes so far. Like it's so cool. So
Yeah.
cool. Well, Dr. Sonic, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to post up. You mentioned you gave a lot of great resources that people can turn to. I'm going to point people to your website, michaelsonic.com, and there's a lot of great resources there. The little things that you can do and take and implement right away. There's the it's your book, Treating People Not Patients. There's lots of resources around that, as well as the video series that you mentioned as well every Wednesday. So thank you so much for joining us, and appreciate you sharing your experience today.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.